What is up, Pokemon fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're doing fantastic. Today I am here with a very special guest. Now, she is a voice actress who is best known to fans as the original voice of Ash Ketchum from the Pokemon series, as well as many other characters. But she's also best known as Sailor Pluto from the Sailor Moon franchise, Nico Robin from the 4Kids version of One Piece, April O'Neil from the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, the Dragon Ball franchise, and so much more. Please welcome the iconic and amazing Veronica Taylor.
Thank you, Simon. That was a lovely introduction. I'm happy to be here with you.
That's an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thanks. I think no one can really just answer that question anymore. It's multi-layered, but I'm doing okay.
Absolutely.
I've been busy lately, so it's good.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I should start off by saying this very quickly before we go into the questions, that I should mention to all the listeners out there and to you, Veronica, that the first time I met you was actually at the very first comic convention that I went to in 2014 at Supernova, when you and Eric Stewart were in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, wow.
So,
It
which...
doesn't even seem that long ago at this point, but my goodness.
It seemed like a long time ago, which was insane. That was actually the first comic convention that I'd gone to at that point, and that was before I started HannaTalk, which would be about a year later after that. So,
Wow.
which is
Wow,
incredible.
we've known each other a long time then.
Absolutely. But no.
Melbourne is certainly one of my favorite cities in Australia. Obviously, to say the coffee is really great, everyone already knows that, but the architecture and all those restaurants down little alleys, and it's just such a wonderful city. I can't wait to get back.
Absolutely.
And then I'll see you.
Absolutely. Well, we've just actually had the first comic convention this year, which was Supernova.
Yeah.
Happened this year. Obviously, because of the restrictions that were happening at the time, and because of travel restrictions, they had to work around with what guests they had available at that time. But I remember that was actually the first comic convention that I've been back in over 5-6 years now. So
Wow.
I had not been to a comic convention during that time since the last one I went to, which was around 2016. So I think it was 2016, 2017. Anyway, and I had dressed up for the first time at a comic convention as a Batman character, Red Hood, and I'd met Spike Spencer from Evangelion there. He was actually in Australia during the lockdown, and I interviewed him last year, and he
Wow.
mentioned about that, which was amazing.
Yeah. That's incredible.
That's absolutely
How lucky
fantastic.
to be there.
Absolutely. It was really great just to have comic conventions coming back. I think just in general in Australia, obviously from coming out of the last lockdown that we just had, was just having those opportunities slowly coming back on the rise and everything. And
Right.
it would be equally as amazing, like once international travels start to come back, we'd have more guest stars coming to comic conventions, which would be off the Richter scale. So
I hope so. I really can't wait.
I can't wait for that either. And obviously going into my first question here is, during this time with what's been happening with the virus and the pandemic, how have you been keeping things up, especially on the acting side of things?
Well, I've had a little recording studio in my apartment for the last 7 years. When I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I had to get some way to record at home so that I could keep up with my clients in New York and the jobs that I had that continue. That I do some jobs every month, or things like that. So I was already set up to work from home, but I would say that most of the people that I work with here in Los Angeles were not set up the clients I work with were not set up to work with actors who were at home. So there was for me at least, there was a large amount of time as people got used to this and figured out what was possible. So it was, I'm a freelancer, so here you get unemployment if you have a job, but as a freelancer you don't have a job, so you can't really get unemployment. So it's been a tricky time, but definitely I've been able to do more from home now. I do a lot of audiobooks and cartoons and video games. All of that stuff has come through. So I've been busy with that. I feel, I don't know about you, but now that everyone is working from home, there's no concept of time anymore. And so before you could say, oh, I'm taking the weekend and doing something, well, now people email at all times. You don't really, you have to keep checking all the time for work coming in because there's no weekend anymore. So it's been a balancing act. Also, my daughter graduated from college last May, so we've been also figuring out how she's working from home. She's an artist. We've been kind of tackling that, and I think along the lines of what everyone has been going through, figuring out how to navigate the intense sorrow and tragedy and fear of the virus with positivity and reaching out and really coming together as a community. So, and then working on top of that. So I think it's been a balancing act, is the best way to say it.
No, I think that's definitely true in that regard. I mean, obviously, like with having gone through the last lockdown that we just been through last year, I mean, Australia having been hit the hardest during that point,
Right.
where it's like it's just as you described it, basically, where like the sense of time is just gone, basically. So every day it just feels like oh, okay, we'll work on. Oh yeah, instead of like saying, oh, I've got this thing organized on the weekend, it's like saying, well, I've got something organized for the rest of the week because here I am stuck up in my home doing this work and all that. So there you go.
And I don't know if you find this, but I find that it takes me a lot longer to get things done. Maybe it's because there's more distractions at home, or I have to do the dishes and then I have to record, and I don't know, it's weirdly more difficult when it should be easier. And I'm behind in more things. It took me forever to respond to you. I'm just behind on emails and all of this stuff, and yet logically it should be so much easier. But I think I don't know, you always have to be so conscious of what's happening with the virus and what's going on with people in your community and around the world, and how are we managing this, and there's a lot more to think about other than, well, just yourself, I guess.
I definitely understand. I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. I think it just really depends on the kind of person that you are as well. Like if you're someone who is very like social and likes to like an extrovert in a way that likes to be around other people and around a community and all that kind of stuff. If you're someone who's a bit more like an introvert, like myself, who's more used to being like isolated for the most part, it doesn't really hit as badly as others. I mean, it certainly hit me a lot during moments and such when I wanted to interact with other people and all that kind of stuff, and especially because of my work as a teacher, that it's like that definitely impacted on my work as well, especially because I've been so used to doing things in a live setting that to all of a sudden do it in an online setting is a whole other thing. And also on top of that is the amount of work you have to do as well. Like you could end up starting with the same amount of work that you had in a live situation, or it could just go down to a small number because people are going to be saying, no, we're not going to do the online stuff. We're going to wait till live stuff comes back. And I don't blame them. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So that's it right there.
Yeah.
It's very crazy times we're living in, and I will say in the fact, as you just mentioned about, of course, so just talking about this, that like it's hard. There's no question about that basically, but we will end up getting out of this. It's not a question of if, but it's more of a matter of when, though.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And especially with everyone pulling together, I mean, now the vaccine is more readily available, and that's kind of your super shield, your armor to get out of the house in. And, as we move further, hopefully we'll learn from this so the next time something like this happens, which undoubtedly it will, that we are all better prepared to handle it. So perhaps this whole lockdown situation wouldn't have to be as intense.
Absolutely.
If we already know what to do.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely true in that. And
Yeah,
that's just it right there. Just us banding together and just being stronger as a community
totally.
in the face of such adversity like this.
Totally, I totally agree.
Ab-
For me, it's really reminded me how important it is, and how important it is to know that we are all in this together. And when you realize how literally we are connected through supply chains and all of these things you take for granted that come from all over to the world to wherever you are, we really do have to all work together. Plus, we only have one planet, so we're in this together, or I
Absolutely.
should say, we're on this together.
That's
This little
true.
Earth. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, if they may, just mentioning about the one planet part, if they're ever to invent, like, obviously technology is invented constantly, they may decide to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, if the planet is ever in danger, let's move up to the moon.
Right.
I'm doubt,
Well, I can't. I kind of have that. What you can't really ruin one place and then hope to just move to another. I think we need to focus on what we have at the moment. And but could you imagine if we're growing food on the moon and shipping it back, or I don't know. There's so many things you could do.
that'd be an interesting idea.
Hmm.
Something to keep in mind in the future because of how
Yes,
much technology is being invented on a regular basis.
that's right.
Absolutely. Now, on to now let's get started with looking at the origins of your career. How did you get started in acting?
I did a play when I was 5, and I decided at that moment that I wanted to be an actor, and that was it for me. So I was in every play I could be in elementary school, high school, and I played soccer. I took dance classes. I did, all kinds of things. And then in college, I majored in acting, and then I went to grad school, and I have an MFA in acting. So that's what it's all been about for me. And then I did a lot of stage and then some TV, and I started voiceover probably, gosh, I think my first voiceover job really was for the Batman stunt show at Six Flags Great Adventure, which is an amusement park, and they had this big stunt show, and I was one of the actors in that, and I got to do the voice of Chase Meridian and Spice, which were the two characters, the only female characters in it, and that was the voice that was used in all the Six Flags amusement parks in the U.S. And so I guess that was my first paid voiceover job.
Wow, that is fantastic. And
Yeah,
who all,
weird.
yeah.
Weird. You just never know.
But no, that's absolutely fantastic. That's really wonderful. And who or what inspired you to go into acting, and who would you consider like your acting influences?
Well, my parents are actors, so I certainly, it's not something I ever thought about actually. It's just something I did. But um, I I don't know that I don't know that I ever really thought about it. Really, like I said, I kind of was in a play and I decided this is it. This is what I want to do. And I always thought I just want to make a living being an actor. That was my goal. And luckily I am. So that's pretty great. I've seen a lot of Shakespeare when I grew up. My parents certainly are my big role models. Um, they're both fantastic actors, and we went to see a lot of theater. We saw some Broadway. I went to Canada to the Shakespeare Festival there, and I saw Maggie Smith when I was maybe in 7th grade, and I'll never forget that. She certainly was so incredible. Perhaps she was one of my outside my family early influences.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And I think that's great that you spoke about how you said that your parents are actors themselves. And that actually reminds me, I think, of a story of like, well, I think it was from an interview that I did with Ben Diskin, who is best known from the Codename Kids Next Door series, how he
Mm-hmm.
spoke about how his parents were actors themselves. And he started out as a child actor before starting out in the I think it was in the live action world and then into the voiceover world as he grew older. and how he spoke about how like he was very lucky to have actors that were parents that were actors themselves, so they could steer him in the right direction. Especially like with a lot of child actors, they like, as we know the stories with like a lot of child actors, like what ends up happening to a lot of child actors as they start to go further in their career, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and what the things that I worked on as a child were not professional, so I didn't have all of those like poor children do now. There's so much online, and there's so much written about them, and all of that it's a tricky path to navigate. But for me, I just was able to do what I loved, and it was certainly challenging, but it formed who I am. And I also think getting to see adults in your life pursuing their dreams and doing what they are passionate about. I think no matter what your parents do or what your parents' friends do, and in that circle that you have at home, when you have role models who can show you what it's like to, even though it's not easy, but to do what they love, and also to be able to, I guess, still give you the attention you need and guidance, but also pursue what they need to do. I think that makes a very big difference. And for me, it was a very positive, had a very positive effect on my life. So it really enabled me to just kind of do what I wanted. You know what I mean? Not just like what I want, but it allowed me the freedom to explore and figure out really what I was passionate about.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely important to have in any sort of field out there as well. Like in understanding your identity and understanding your path and everything, and having positive role models in our lives that can help us, that inspire us to say, oh, I want to go down this path here, and also people to help guide us along on that path as well. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think so. And bringing this a little bit to Comic Cons that we were talking about, what I think is great about the Comic Con community is that you can step outside of your home and find role models, find even someone your own age can be a role model. You know, that where you find a network of people to work with, and you have people that you can ask questions of, and you can go to workshops and learn more about something that you had no idea about, or something that you thought you knew everything about. But you are able to explore all of those things, and the Comic Con is like the umbrella under which you have a safe haven, and you're able to just explore who you are and find new ideas and be creative.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true on that path as well. In exactly as you just said before, like with Comic Con, like yeah, you could basically just have a role model from anywhere, from someone like older than me to, or even someone about the same age as myself as well. It can be fantastic in that regard, and also being part of the same community as well. Like
right.
Which I think is fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, with any sort of anime series that you worked in the past, now as many fans will know that a lot of anime is typically based on manga, or in the case of Pokemon, however, which didn't have manga at the time, but was based on the video games that were released at that time. Have you ever read the manga for any anime series that you've worked on, or ever become familiar or heard of a project before you started working on that series?
I would say no. I've not read any manga, but I've seen the books. Um, I I have, which sounds odd to say, but I'm fascinated by it and love it, but I've not read any of specifically. I have most of the projects I've worked on I didn't know anything about beforehand, although of course I had heard of Dragon Ball Z. I'd heard of Sailor Moon, and so those I kind of could understand the world that I was auditioning to get into. I don't know that there's many other things that I really had heard of before, especially, well, of course, Ninja Turtles. I had heard of that. I was a huge fan of that before I auditioned. So certain things that were established by the time I came along, but Pokemon, for instance, I didn't know anything about. And I had heard, I think while we were auditioning or close to when we started, that children had had seizures in Japan watching one of the episodes. And oddly enough, I still auditioned for it. So I don't know what that says about me. But otherwise, no, I kind of am blissfully unaware. And then I just go into the audition with my full self and try to give them what they're asking for.
Right, that's fantastic. And for any series where your character is like a main character or a character that's featured prominently across the series, do you know where your character is going in terms of the story or in terms of its arc, or is everything just recorded out of context?
It's probably, I never have any idea. In every project that I work on, and I'm just thinking it through to make sure this is right, but I would say in every single project I work on, I only get information about that episode. And I don't always get very much information about the episode. If it's anime and we're dubbing, which means we fit the lip flap, I only really see usually my lines and the lines around it. So you don't get to watch the whole show to understand how your character fits in. That's the job of the director, to kind of fill in the gaps so that you just do wherever your character shows up. I have some things that I work on that my character may speak in the very beginning of an episode, and then like let's say at line 10, and then show up again at line 384. So they're way back towards the end. And I don't really know what has happened in between. So certainly with Pokemon, for instance, that was one episode at a time. We never knew what was going to happen in the episode after, or any of that stuff. So I wish that we had more information, but really I don't get any. It's a wonderful exercise for an actor to be in the moment and playing just that moment, because you don't know, I guess just like life, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely true in that regard, because like as just talking about before, how a lot of anime productions are typically based on source material. In the case of like Sailor Moon, for example, which has manga attached to it, or any other series out there that has like a manga or source material to follow along from that. In the case of Pokemon, however, they obviously have the video games on that, but really a lot of the stories they wrote in the Pokemon series was based on some of the stories from the games, but then kind of went off into their own sort of direction after that. It reminds me of a couple of interviews that I did with Aaron Roberts and Amberly Connors, who spoke about that they're huge fans of a lot of the manga and anime that they've worked on, even before they started working on it. I think Aaron Roberts said to me that he had read the manga for this one anime that he had worked on as a way for him, and I quote, to give off the best dub performance that I can. Whereas on the other side of that, you've got an actor like Joshua Seth, for example, who's best known from the Digimon franchise, who said, and this is advice that he got from an actor who said to him, don't read ahead, just be surprised.
I think that's a good point. And also, you don't know, I think there's a couple things. You don't know what direction whomever is producing the show wants you to take. You don't know if what you are working on is based on what was written, or if it's going in a different direction. And to that, you don't know what the other voices around you and characters around you are doing. Only the director does in that specific episode. So ultimately, it's a little easier if you don't come in with some presuppositions and predetermined ideas, because you don't know if they actually apply to what you're working on.
Absolutely.
But I think if you love something, why not read everything you can? But I don't think, I've never thought to do that, because I don't actually have the time to seek it out, go to wherever I need to go to find it, and then sit and read it, and then do, work on the show or whatever it is. So I just haven't done it, even looked into it, because of a time. I think whatever suits you is the best for you as an actor. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but as an actor, you do have to be open to what's happening in the moment, in that particular session, because other people are kind of sewing it all together.
Absolutely. And I think also speaking about, of course, with, talking about, of course, mentioning about the Pokemon episode, which was the infamous episode that caused a lot of seizures to a lot of kids in Japan. Obviously, when it comes to, from dubbing from the Japanese version over to English dubbing, that obviously in the case of Pokemon, however, they've always tried to stick with the episodes they could give off to, a general audience, and especially for, younger audiences as well. And also in the fact of, it's the same case, of course, with, a lot of, where I found out with the Yu-Gi-Oh series, how the manga and the anime are two very, very different stories, especially even going from the Japanese version to the English dub of the original Yu-Gi-Oh series. It's a completely different show, because I understand, of course, why it is they did that, because they want to get it across to a younger, mostly younger audiences. But it's when you look across the Japanese dub of a lot of the anime, from Yu-Gi-Oh to Pokemon, it's wow, it's a completely different series in some way or another, which is crazy. Who knows if we'll ever see an English dub of what was done in the Japanese version, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on where it's going to show or air, because with Pokemon or One Piece, a number of shows that 4Kids worked on or produced that were on network television in the United States, they had to change certain things because of what would be accepted on Saturday morning or on early morning children's TV. So if you're going right to cable or you're going on your own streaming network now, you can get away with a lot more. So that would also determine whether they went back. Like the One Piece that I worked on for Saturday morning is very different from the One Piece that's being worked on now because of where it's being shown. So I think that also plays a part.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of it has to do with a lot of the dubbing companies that handle certain properties like that. Like in the case of 4Kids, obviously when it was under the Pokemon, when Pokemon used to be under 4Kids at that time, that they had to get that across into younger audiences at that time because of and I think that was even to the games as well. That was mostly towards younger viewers in that. Whereas on the other side of that, you've got, of course, Pokemon, One Piece, which started in 4Kids and then went to Funimation, which allowed them to do it much closer to the manga, which is actually a really serious and really intense story.
Right.
So there you go.
Right. And at least, I know a lot of people complain about the changes that were made in One Piece, which of course I never knew because I didn't see it, so I didn't see before it was rotoscoped the cigarette or a gun or something taken out. I only saw what the final was before we dubbed it, so at least it got it on air so that people could know about it, and then I think that fed into its fandom. But it's, we all want things to be as close to the original as possible, I think, ultimately.
Absolutely. Definitely. Now, going across into your most prominent roles, as we've just mentioned about before, now you're best known for being the first voice of Ash Ketchum and voicing other several characters from his mother, Delia, to May in the Pokemon franchise. What was it like to step into the world of Pokemon for the first time?
I just remember when I auditioned, what I loved was that I saw a tiny clip and we had to match the voices in that as close as we could. And I just remember the colors and the energy of it, and it just looked so wonderful. And that's from a tiny clip. It was an incredible job because Ash is an incredible character and he's so normal, where he makes mistakes and he falls down and he forgets things, he oversleeps, and he goes through many of the same things that we all do. Maybe you have a choice picked out and you don't get that choice, but then later you realize what you got was really what you needed all along. All of these little things that we've learned from it, being able to play Ash and represent everyone was really amazing. It was quite an honor, but it was an amazing challenge as an actor. It was a wonderful world to step into, and I just loved it. I love it still. I just love thinking about it. I definitely talk more about Pokemon now than I did when I was working on the show. So more people care about it now than when I was working on the show. So I think I understand the impact more now than in the early days, for sure.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And of course, as you were talking about before, like how your love for the Pokemon franchise had grown as you were working on the series at that time, and you speak about it a lot more now compared to when it first started. Pokemon was actually one of the first anime that I had watched when I was a kid, and it's an anime that is still very close to my heart. And to the listeners out there, you probably are aware of this because I posted this on social media a while back, but I'm actually wearing the Pikachu shirt, literally, which has the number 25 on the front, on the back, which goes into a question I'll talk about just a little bit later, but that just shows how much of a Pokemon fan I still am to this day forward.
Wow.
So
That's quite impressive.
So I wore it just for the occasion. So
Thank you.
Now we've actually got ourselves a fan question here from Daniel Hong. Shout out to you, Daniel, for an awesome question, by the way, mate. Who asks, what are your top 3 favorite Ash Ketchum Pokemon?
Well, I have to say number 1 is Pikachu. Maybe I should go for this conversation number 2, Trico. And number 3, Charizard. Let's go for that.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful.
This. Don't hold me to it. I could change my mind at any time.
No. That's absolutely fantastic. And to all the listeners out there as well, shout out to you, Daniel, for an awesome question, mate. That's fantastic. To all the listeners out there who'll be listening when this interview is up and running, let me know in the comments below, what are your top 3 favorite Pokemon from either Ash Ketchum or from anywhere in the Pokemon franchise? Let's get a conversation going, because this is fantastic.
Yeah, terrific.
Now, speaking about, of course, for 25, this year happens to mark the 25th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise. How did it feel to celebrate such an incredible milestone as that?
Well, it's amazing. I think it's a true testament to creative genius and imagination. Because if Satoshi Tajiri sitting in his room coming up with these characters, could you imagine? He was just doing what he loved. He was working on things. And to know that after more than 25 years now for him, I'm sure, that this still has relevance and it still has so many fans and there's such an importance to it. And it's a huge part of our culture, all of our cultures around the world. Pikachu, I think, is one of the most recognizable figures anywhere. And I mean, it's mind-boggling. And so many people have worked so hard on this. So many people have collected so many things. So many people have formed gaming groups and tournaments and friendships and all of that. So it's not just about the people who created the video games and the TV show and the people who worked on the TV show. It's about all of us who participate in this Pokemon world. And I think that is incredible. Pokemon has brought so many people together and continues to do so. I don't know of anything that has had that much of an impact, at least on my life.
Absolutely.
Or on my consciousness. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And it's definitely true to see a franchise as iconic as Pokemon has stood the test of time for 25 years now. So happy 25th anniversary to Pokemon. Here's to another 25 years. Here's to another 25. Now,
yes, definitely.
Now, going across onto the anime a fair bit. Now, as spoken about before, that originally Pokemon was under the 4Kids label and then had made the switch around, I think it was around the end of Pokemon Advanced Battle, which then made the change that it did to the latest series. Were you aware of what was going on at that time?
No, we were finishing up we had been told that I think they had a 10th anniversary special coming, and we were told that that had come in. So we were, getting ready to start it at some point. And then we were told that we were being replaced. Pokemon USA was taking the show from 4Kids, not renewing their contract, and they were not taking us with it. So that was it.
Right. Well, we've had several of the original actors come back into certain roles and all that kind of stuff, even if they weren't playing the exact same character that they were in the original series. We had Megan Hollingshead coming back into the series. We had Erica Schroeder coming back into the series. My question to you and to the listeners out there as well, will we hope to see you return to the Pokemon franchise down the line in the current series or potentially a spin-off series?
Well, that's up to them. They certainly know how to contact me, and as of now, they have shown no interest in having me part of it. So, none of that, me not being a part of it, has not been my choice. So, I couldn't tell you. Perhaps at some point they will reach out. I don't know.
That would be absolutely amazing if that was the case. Just to have the original trio of like yourself, Eric Stewart, Rachel Livies, all the original every one of the original actors, just to come back for like a small appearance like that, even just to play completely different characters in the Pokemon franchise would just be fantastic. It would be amazing. It would
be great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, it's not up to me, unfortunately, but yes, I would love it.
Absolutely. That would be absolutely amazing. Now, speaking about a little bit more with regards to Pikachu, now we had the live-action Detective Pikachu movie with Ryan Reynolds, which marked as the first live-action Pokemon movie, even from like actually video game property under Nintendo. Did you ever get to see the movie yourself? And what's been your opinion? Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And what's been your opinion on anime and video game properties being adapted for live action?
Well, I honestly haven't given that a lot of thought. I do find it a little bit strange that the people who have worked so hard to, I don't know, form these shows are not part of, in any way, of the live action. So I just find that just a little strange and unsatisfying. So it's interesting to see live action, but I prefer the animated side because I think your brain gets to engage in a different way when you're watching it, and you can involve yourself more. When you're seeing live action, it kind of does all the work for you. So I'm not as interested in seeing the live action versions of properties. I think in general. I think it's really exciting that there's so much love for these that they've decided to take it a step further and make it something else. But like the Detective Pikachu movie, I thought was interesting, but at the same time, I thought the writing, it lost a lot of the humor that the show has. I thought it was too violent. And so if you're bringing kids to see something like that who generally watch Pokemon, I just don't think it's the right audience. And for that, I think you have to be very careful. And you also have, with the show, for instance, you've cultivated this idea around it of safety and comfort. And of course, there are battles, but nobody gets hurt, everybody is breathing at the end. And I just, I don't know, I thought, I just didn't like that. I thought they could have just made a whole nother movie and not made it a spin-off of Pokemon.
I definitely understand where you're coming from in that. Obviously, like with the Detective Pikachu movie, it was based on, of course, the actual game of the same name from Nintendo 3DS, but they also took a lot of inspiration from, I guess you could say, the first Pokemon movie as well. So it was kind of combining both aspects of those properties together. And for me personally, I feel like the fact alone that they did a live action Pokemon movie, and especially based on a Nintendo property as well, when we've famously have known that Nintendo has said, we're not doing a live action property of one of our properties again. after the Super Mario movie, and then come to Detective Pikachu, it finally happens.
Right.
So I definitely have to give them props for saying, yep, we can do a video game property on Nintendo franchise. That means anything else is possible at this point. So I think
And
it's.
so did you like it?
I loved it actually. For me personally, I saw it as just like the fact alone that they were able to bring a lot of the Pokemon that we saw to life like this. Obviously, it wasn't based entirely on the game itself, but the fact alone of seeing all the references, all the Easter eggs, for me personally, I saw it as like it was a love letter to, like a little bit of a love letter to the Pokemon franchise, but also as a love letter to the fans as well. So for me as a fan, I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad.
Absolutely. And my next question to you, Veronica, and also mostly to the listeners out there, they've been talking about doing a sequel to the Detective Pikachu movie, and let me know in the comments below, guys, what do you want to see them do in the sequel to Detective Pikachu, and leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Veronica Taylor or any of the original actors make a Stan Lee cameo in the sequel.
I'm going to just put my comment here and say yes. I just think that would be really cool, and that I think would be only fans of the show, Pokemon the series, would know that. So I just think it would be awesome.
I think it would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, they managed to, I mean, obviously talking about with video game properties, how they did the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, like the year after that, with Jim Carrey as Dr. Eggman, and they even went as far as to get Colleen O'Shaughnessy to come back as the voice of Tails in the post-credits scene. It was like, that's just the icing on top of the cake right there. That is fantastic. So if they can manage to do that for one of the voice actors to come back as one of their own characters, then I think just to get one of the original actors to come back for like a Stan Lee cameo, even as just like themselves, would be epic. Would be absolutely epic.
I think so too. I would love it.
I would love that as well. That would be amazing. Now, going across into several of the other roles that you've done, now we've also spoken about with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where you played April O'Neil in the 2003 series. What is it like playing that character and stepping into the world of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I loved watching that show, the cartoon, on Saturday mornings, and getting a chance to audition for April was like a dream come true. And then being cast was amazing. Um, I don't know, there's something, that show, the humor, it's so kooky and weird and fun. It was great working on that. And it was such a, I mean, the problem is April is kind of boring because she's so normal and she mostly just did computer work. But I liked it when she got a little outside of her, quote, shell and got to do some other fun stuff. I'm not saying that everybody needs to battle, but it certainly was fun when she got into the action. But it's just to know how that show has evolved and changed with the times and yet stayed the same, all of that, I'm just so happy to be a part of that. The whole franchise, we can call it now, I guess. It's just really incredible.
Absolutely.
Plus, I do have to add that the people I worked with on that show were top-notch. Everyone from the actors, directors, writers, all of the artists who were doing storybooks, we got to be in the same building together, so I got to know everybody there, and it was an incredible just coming together of top talent. So that was great for me.
That's absolutely fantastic. And it was definitely a really great series. From when I watched it from a long time ago, it was actually a bit of a dark series compared to like the original 80s, the original animated series from back in the 80s. But that was because I think the latest series was taking a bit more of an inspiration from the comic book series, which was quite dark at that time. So for me, I saw it as just like a blending of the two, actually. So I think it was just fantastic, actually, that they went that step above to say, yep, we can do hardcore cartoon stories like this. Take a look at Batman the Animated Series.
Right, which was incredible. Yeah, and it was nice to work on that, and they fit that somehow into the Saturday morning lineup, so it was pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Now, we've of course had spoken a fair bit about with One Piece, as where you played Nico Robin in the 4Kids version. Did you ever get to watch the Funimation version of One Piece or meet any of the actors from the Funimation version, like Chris Sabat or Stephanie Young or Colin Clinkenbeard?
Yes, I know them from just life, but I have not watched the new One Piece. The one that I'm not in. I haven't watched that at all. But
Well,
I do. I love all of them. I think they're great actors. I just haven't watched it.
right. That's fantastic. Well, I've certainly have watched like both versions of the 4Kids version from a long time ago, and of course the
Mm-hmm.
Funimation version, like numerous times, especially since the Funimation version, and especially because that's to many fans out there considered the like the true version of One Piece from comparing it to the manga, and that it's still continuously going on to this day forward. In the way of Pokemon, how it's hit its I think it was back in 2019, it hit its 20th anniversary. So it's still
Oh,
going incredibly strong at this point.
yeah, wow.
So absolutely, and it's just fantastic to see franchises as iconic as Pokemon, Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Sailor Moon, like still hitting those marks, and Yu-Gi-Oh as well, still hitting marks like
Yeah,
this, which I think is
yeah.
fantastic. And speaking about, of course, with other franchises, now you also stepped into franchises, as we've mentioned about before, like the Dragon Ball universe, particularly in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie as Berry
Yeah.
Blue, the Sailor Moon franchise as Sailor Pluto, and of course the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. What was it like to step into franchises as big as those?
Well, I think you always have in the back of your mind the fact that this is a world that exists and has existed way before you entered into it. And the fact that, um, also in the back of your mind, the fact that there are so many people who love it and who know so much more than you do about it. Um, but at the same time, you have to be able to, like you approach every acting role, you have to just jump in and play the character with the direction you're given. So even if you see the character and you read the lines and you think it may sound a certain way, you still have to shift to give them what they want. And so I think for me, the gosh, Barry Blue doesn't show up very much in the movie. It was a very short, intense recording session, and I didn't. I think at the time I didn't even know if I was going to be playing the character. I just kind of recorded and then waited to see if they chose me. So it was pretty incredible. I think she again is a weird, kooky character, and it was super to be her for a little bit, and she's kind of so bossy and I don't know, sublime. Also, I played Brienne Ribrianne in the series, and she's out there and so full of love and energy, and the way Dragon Ball is so out of this world, literally, with how big the characters are, and that was just really fun and kind of freeing to play. So certainly with Dragon Ball, the scripts are great. There's a lot of humor in them, and it's nice to get in and play around with that.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, talking just a little bit more with regards to Dragon Ball. Now, with the now they've just had the announcement of a new Dragon Ball movie. Will we hope to see you come back into the world of Dragon Ball, potentially in like the new film or even like a new Dragon Ball series?
I hope so. That is the first I've heard of it just now with you saying that, so I have no idea. So fingers crossed. I'm
Absolutely.
available.
Absolutely. Now speaking about a little bit more with Sailor Moon. Now we just had the Sailor Moon Eternal movie, which essentially acts as like the final season to the Sailor Moon story in general. But if you wanted to do a spin-off series on the Sailor Moon franchise, what would you want that to focus on?
I would love to have a side series on what Sailor Pluto does when she's standing around guarding the door of space and time. So it would be pretty cool if she really is just standing there. It would be nice to know what she thinks about and if she travels in her mind to places, because she's so reserved. And in fact, we had to go back in the beginning to re-record things because she was showing too much emotion, and I had to really hold back a lot more. So since she is reserved, it would be really cool, I think, if she wasn't in her mind and she got to be the person she really wants to be, perhaps. So I think that would be pretty great. On a purely selfish note, that it would just be about Sailor Pluto and her friends.
That would be pretty epic if that was the case, because we've had so many Sailor Moon franchises focused on the team in general, but we also had a lot of episodes dedicated to just specific members of the group as well, and that's giving the potential to go into spin-off series, just focusing on those individual members, or even focusing on a lot of the mythology that they establish in the series, or just tease out a little bit. So they've got a world of opportunity right there under their fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, Sailor Moon is about working with each other to bring about good, you know? And so you really can't beat that, because that's human. That's what we're all about. And so when you watch anything, whether you're playing a video game, you're watching a TV show, a movie, and it's about people coming together together you are stronger and you can make a difference in the world. I mean, talk about role models. That's a pretty great way to spend your time watching that.
Absolutely.
So perhaps seeing everybody alone may not be the most Sailor Moony-ish that you could be, but it certainly would be fun.
Probably not, but it would be interesting though. It'd be an interesting idea, I think.
A 3-part series.
Yes.
Like
That would be fantastic though. Anything in Sailor Moon related would be absolutely amazing.
I agree.
Now, you've also starred in several other productions such as the Slayers series, Iki Towsen, the Aria series, and Final Fantasy. What was it like playing across those series?
Well, again, I think it's so as an actor, I never have one job at a time. And I'm always, I work on one thing for 2 hours, and then I go and I have another job for 3, and then I have another job for 1 hour, and then, take a break and maybe work longer. So all of them, I have to separate it in my mind, because I could work on it all in one day. And the idea of where the series is going doesn't really impact me. So it's more, because I don't know what it is. So it's more about just who each character is. And I try to be as specific as I can when I'm in the booth, so that when I come back to it, whether it's in a day or a week, a month, 3 years, that I'll have some idea of what is the core of that character. So mostly what I do is concentrate on that. And then it's later, when I see the episodes or when I hear people talking about them, that's where being part of the franchise impacts me, if that makes sense.
No,
so,
that's absolutely
in a way,
fantastic.
working on it, it's just day to day or episode to episode. But later, at a Comic-Con, for instance, because I don't talk about this much at home, that sometimes I understand the arc of a show by talking about it to people at a Comic-Con, which I didn't fully know when I was working on it.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I think that's really great to see that in that regard as well. And speaking about, of course, mentioning about with Final Fantasy, as we were talking about with Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog, is with Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog breaking the video game film curse, as many people would put it. Would you want to see like a Final Fantasy film or TV series?
Well, I think there is a lot to do there. Would it be like Game of Thrones? So has it been done? I do think the world of fantasy, there's so much you can do with it, and we all want to escape our like boring lives and get into a fantasy, to live a life where outfits are different and challenges are different. So that seems to have a lot of space to do that. What about Fire Emblem Three Houses? That would make a great series in terms of all the depth of the characters. There's so much to them that you could really bring out. So I think it could be good. I don't know that I'd want to see it live action, but
I think
I don't know. I do enjoy the animated side of it.
I definitely understand I understand that, of course, and I think it would be interesting to see a Final Fantasy series done live action. It would be kind of like a fantasy version of Game of Thrones, essentially.
Yeah.
But if they can manage to do, obviously this was reported I think last year, where Disney had announced they're planning on doing a Kingdom Hearts TV show, which was a mixture of the Disney characters with the Final Fantasy characters. So if they can manage to do that, then anything's possible, basically. And if they can say, hey, we're going to be doing a live action version of The Last of Us game or Resident Evil again, then anything is possible at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. You are up on much more news than I am, so I really appreciate that. I'm gonna have to like do weekly emails with you to get caught up.
Well,
That's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm just a fan of this stuff, so there you go.
Yeah, you're incredible.
And with looking back over your whole career and where you're going and where you're looking to the future at this point, where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting and entertainment in the long run?
Well, as I said, my goal has always been to be a working actor, and that's what I would like to continue to be. I enjoy working on so many different types of projects. The challenge that comes from doing a cartoon, whether it's dubbing it or doing it prelay, doing video game work, audiobooks. I work on a lot of English as a second language, audio workbook type programs. I do so many different types of jobs. Um, I would want that challenge to continue. I just love working. I also would hope that perhaps now that my daughter is out of college, that maybe I could go back to more stage and screen, which I didn't do for a long time because I didn't have the time that I could take big chunks of time away. But now she's a grown-up, so I can have my life back in a sense. I'm working on some projects that I would like to do that are for kids. I have some book ideas, things like that I would like to write. I just want to stay as creative as possible. I'm not great working on my own, so I'm always looking to work with other creatives and really come together and make something wonderful and positive and environmentally safe, let's say. So I just want to keep working ultimately.
I think that's fantastic advice right there, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. Now, we've got ourselves a really fun question here. What two shows have you worked on would you want to see a crossover between, story-wise and character-wise?
Well, I think it would be very confusing for Ash Ketchum to see the Ninja Turtles, actually. I think that would be funny and confusing, maybe one episode. I don't think he would understand talking turtles, and the size of them probably wouldn't bother him. But I also love Slayers in Pokemon. I think Amelia and Ash look fairly similar, and it would be pretty interesting if those two worlds of, even though, Slayers is magic and Pokemon is reality, even though it's an extended reality. But to have those two worlds come together would be fascinating, and to figure out what would happen if Ash learned some magic. I would like that.
That would be a pretty epic crossover right there. Even if it was just going to be for a one-off episode, that would be absolutely amazing, actually. And if they can mention...
Yeah, with those crossovers, like, wasn't that Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents? Didn't they have a crossover?
They actually did. Yes, they did have a crossover at one point or another. So that would be
like
really...
that kind of weird stuff. Yeah, I would love to do that.
That would be fantastic if they could pull off a Pokemon Slayers crossover, even if it's just going to be for a one-off episode. That would be really epic.
And also, Amelia's dad is single, and Ash's mom is single. So I'm wondering if they met. Wow, I just don't know.
That would be pretty epic in that case, because there's still so many unanswered questions to the Pokemon series just in general, that they haven't even started answering a lot of those really big questions yet. So
No, I don't think they will. I mean, ultimately, isn't Ash's not knowing who his dad is or search for his dad is kind of his search for himself? And isn't that part of what makes him him? It's part of his identity. And I'm not sure, perhaps he wouldn't have gone on his journey had he had his father at home. I don't know.
Possibly. That would be an interesting story idea actually to go into, because obviously with the current Pokemon series, how they're kind of going back full circle to the very first Pokemon series, like doing a lot of callbacks and a lot of references to the first one. That's what I've noticed a fair bit myself, how they've gone to bringing back a lot of Ash's original Pokemon from the first series, from when he goes to Palatown and everything, which I don't think we've seen that. I don't think we've ever seen that in a lot of the earlier series, like from Sun and Moon or Diamond and Pearl or any of the other series, like since the original though. So it sounds like in a way they're kind of going back to that full circle route to kind of go back and answer a lot of those really big questions. And
Interesting. Well, I have to say that makes me a little bit sad. I wish I were doing that. You know, it's like to be able to play Ash and then the flashbacks. That makes me a little bit sad. But good for the show.
But it would, as I mentioned about before, it would be fantastic to have you or any of the original voice actors to come back and make guest appearances in the new Pokemon series, or in any, or even if they were to do spin-off series, which it sounds like they will. There's going to be more Pokemon down the line, so anything is possible.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that.
Absolutely. Now, and a bit of a head scratcher on this next one here is, what is your view on where the voice acting and the animation industry stands within the whole of the entertainment industry?
Well, it seems like, especially with the pandemic, there's more animation coming out. So I think they realized that it could be less expensive for them to hire people to animate and I guess voice act than paying actors to go live into a studio and work on a show. So I think there will be more animation coming out. It looks like it from just the little bits that I hear around. Is that what you mean? Like, do you think it's continuing? Is that?
Well, I definitely feel like it's definitely like has a much more bigger. It's much bigger on the forefront. Like, even compared to what it was like back then and all that kind of stuff. And especially like with comic conventions, like making that hugely well known and everything. And especially because when people think about, I think this goes back to a quote that I heard from Katie Lee when I interviewed her the second time on HannaTalk, and she said that with a lot of voice actors, unless they're at comic conventions, we're famously anonymous.
That's true. That is true.
That's definitely the term that she goes for, and I think that's fantastic that like animation is now, I mean, obviously it's been getting a huge amount of attention even before the pandemic, but as of now, because animation like is much easier to get out, you don't have to be in a studio to get the work done. It obviously takes quite a lot of work to get even just to like a series done and all that, but it's able to get out a lot faster than a live action production. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
I think the downside is that there are so many people who have been working in the industry for so long, and now that we're at this crossroads, there's so many actors who have bigger names are being cast because the producers feel that will sell the project, and I don't know that it always serves the project to just cast a name rather than someone who can do a voice for it, do a character. So I do think, when you've got the big fish coming into your little pond, it always pushes a lot of the little fish out. And so we'll see, now there's a lot of people who have their favorite voice actors, and many of us will be pushed out as bigger names come in to swim.
Absolutely.
So I think, that's something that we're all always working hard to establish ourselves, but I don't know that the people who are producing voicing care that much, ultimately. So I'm hoping that that will change, and the people who are quite deserving and work very hard and have been doing it for a long time will continue to be cast. I'm hoping.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you look at Disney or other bigger movies, you don't normally have the, quote, regular actors that you hear on a lot of different cartoons.
That's definitely true in that regard. Like how they always tend to cut, like how a lot of bigger like animation productions tend to cast like really huge names that are mostly live action actors that you hear about in the news, that you see in stories and all that kind of stuff, but not really the voice actors that can pull off the job just as easily.
Right.
Which I definitely agree on that in that sense. And I will say this, I've said this probably across every interview I've done. I actually said this at the first comic convention I went to a friend of mine, and I will say it till the day I die. If anyone was to ever ask me why I go to comic conventions, I say it's the voice actors. They're my rock stars right there.
That's so nice.
I literally said this to a friend of mine when I was queuing up to meet you and Eric Stewart. I said, these guys, they're my rock stars right there. I know there's probably Carrie Fisher or Stanley on the other side on this table's just up over there, but no, these are the guys I want to meet right here.
Wow, that's so lovely.
So
thank you.
That's no problem at all. And without going into any spoilers, what's next for Veronica Taylor for the fans to know about?
I'm working on something with Sesame Street that is it's helping Rohingya refugees. Yes. So I am on that project, and that I'm not sure when it will be available, but I'm working on that, and that's really important to me. That's been fantastic to work on, and really, I mean, gosh, to work on anything Sesame Street related is really great. So I have that. I have, I've been doing a lot of audiobooks, and that's been fantastic. I have some video games coming. I'm doing some other anime projects. I have to really think about it, because I'm, like I said, I just I get in my booth and I do my work, and I have to write down what I'm working on, because it all kind of globs together, and I don't specifically remember what I'm doing. But anyway, that, and then Comic Cons are starting to open up, so I'm starting to book some, and we'll see how that goes. I'm quite apprehensive and taking all the safety precautions I can, and I'm hoping everyone who comes to the shows does too. But and I'm hoping to really start traveling again soon. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
If the COVID numbers stay down, and the positivity rate stays down, and the Delta variant stays away, then we'll be back on the road again.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. And final question, what do you think Ash would say if he was in Australia?
Oh, he would say, I would say, hey, Simon, thanks for this totally bonza interview. I know nobody says that anymore, but I love that phrase. And, I would say, good on you for being so prepared and intelligent and amazing. You are awesome. In fact, Simon, I choose you.
That's absolutely fantastic. That is just wonderful. Thank you for that.
This has been so wonderful. It's so nice to talk to you finally. We've been trying to do this for so long.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that it's happened. I'm absolutely so glad that it's finally happened. But that
Me
is
too.
just...
It seems like the perfect timing, actually.
Absolutely. And that is just fantastic. Veronica Taylor, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Thank you. The honor is mine, Simon. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you in person. I'll come to you.
Absolutely.
I love Australia. I can't wait to get back.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. And is there anything you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Well, I would like to say that if you need to find me, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at The Veronica T, on Facebook, The Veronica Taylor. But mostly, I would like to say that it has been my honor to be the voice of Ash, and because of that, have a chance to meet so many of you. And I think as Pokemon brings all of us together, I can't wait for it to continue to do so and for us to get back together in person. I hope that everyone stays as safe as they possibly can, as we acknowledge the tragedy and sadness of this past, gosh, over a year now, and that we can come together and celebrate being alive, being together, and being a very strong, loving community. So I can't wait to see everyone, but thank you for this opportunity to chat. It's been incredible.
It's been an absolute honor, and the honor is all mine as well. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Veronica Taylor, you can check out the links which I'll put to in the description below once this interview is finally up. Don't forget to subscribe down below to HannaTalk. Check out the links, comment below, click that bell, just check out everything. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Veronica Taylor signing off. Bye for now.
Bye.